All right, guys, welcome to part two. So, just to highlight real quick, we started talking about learning and knowledge management and learning organizations. We talked about how learning occurs within an organization, the different methods of which learning can take place. We talked about the idea of a learning culture within an organization, one that, in essence, is promoting the exchanging of ideas and trying to reduce any barriers that might hinder individuals or groups within the organization or different levels of the organization from sharing ideas, discussions, and so forth. And then I sort of left you with this idea is within law enforcement organizations, because of our paramilitary culture, are designed to promote a learning culture. And so that's sort of where we left off. And now I wanted to talk about knowledge-based organizations and characteristics of knowledge-based organizations or learning-based organizations. Okay, these are organizations, obviously, that go back to this whole idea of having this learning culture. And some of the characteristics of knowledge-based organizations or learning-based organizations, number one is that it has a flexible structure. Flexible structure allows problems to be easily resolved within the organization because you don't have to spend time, for lack of a better term, sending things up the food chain. It allows things and resolutions to come quickly to problems rather than taking days or maybe even weeks while this memo makes its way up to some level of decision maker. It has informal processes to address problems within the organization. Enhanced communication network. So, maybe it's one of those organizations that has an e-bulletin board or some other method that makes it extremely easy for individuals to exchange ideas or to communicate with each other and bounce ideas off of each other. So it has a sense of enhanced communication network. It has a culture favoring the exchange and transaction of knowledge. All right. So the culture is such that we share knowledge, we exchange knowledge. Transaction is how do we do it? In other words, is the organizational culture set up so that it promotes the sharing of knowledge through some level of knowledge management system or some other means where knowledge and ideas are freely exchanged and employees are encouraged to share their ideas regardless of what those ideas might be. Senior management is aware of the key role of knowledge and supportive of its application. So in other words, are your managers supporting the whole idea of a culture favoring the exchanging of ideas and the transaction of knowledge, right? That whole learning organization type of application. So management needs to be a key part of that whole process. And then the structures and processes devised to transact the knowledge, such as cooperation, joint ventures, and exchanges of personnel. So the organization is willing to transfer people in order to make that exchange of personnel for the better in terms of maybe sending somebody to a particular level of the organization because this person has a particular skill set that would benefit that organization. And so the structures and processes are there to do those type of changes. Now, these, again, are the characteristics of knowledge-based organization or learning-based organizations. So you have to ask yourself whether or not your organization meets the characteristics of this knowledge-based type organization. We'll talk about law enforcement in a minute because, the focus of our class, although we're talking about information management, knowledge-based organizations, knowledge workers, and so forth, but the focus of this is how does it apply to law enforcement? How does it apply to policing? And if you know anything about the organizational structures of policing and police organizations, sometimes they're not that flexible. Sometimes we don't promote this informal processing. Everything is more formal. We send a memo up to do this, that, or the other. Just think about that as you look at what knowledge-based organizations are. And then again, look at where you work and ascertain whether or not you think your organization is a knowledge-based organization based on these 6 characteristics here. Knowing your workers, I'm not going to go into what each generation is, but in terms of running a knowledge-based organization or a knowledge management system or an array of things, you need to know who your workers are, right? So we have the greatest generation, which are people born between 1900 and 1945. Then you have the baby boomers, which are a group of people that were born between 1946 and 1964. Gen Xers were born between 1965 and 1980. And the millennials were born after 1980. Now, each of these groups, has specific characteristics. And, obviously the millennials are such that they grew up and were born into a world that was more technology advanced than the baby boomers were. So those of us in the baby boomer era sort of had to get used to this idea of technology, the idea of sharing ideas, the idea of how we fit into the organization, that our ideas are valued within the organization. So as you think about your organization and the training needs of your organization, I think you also need to understand who your workers are and how you can apply that training to your workers. Now, when you look at knowledge management systems today, there is no doubt that people coming into the law enforcement profession, I think, have a certain expectation as to the type of technology that should be available to them based on what they're used to growing up. And as an organization, you should have that knowledge-based systems in place to make your organization more efficient, more effective, promoting the idea of this technology, promoting the learning environment, promoting the learning organization, so that your employees will feel valued and want to stay. But again, law enforcement is a different type of organization to some extent in terms of our paramilitary structure. So just know your workers is all I'm saying. You know where you fit in here, and you have your own take on information management, knowledge management systems, and their role in the workplace and things such as that. All right. Benefits to a knowledge-based organization or learning organization. What are the benefits? Improved organizational agility, because remember, the organization is probably going to be flattened a little bit, so the organization is going to be available to respond quickly to changes within the environment, both inside and outside the organization. Better and faster decision making. When you have less layers within your organization, decision making can be a lot quicker, or decision making can be done at lower levels than what we may be used to in the law enforcement profession. Quicker problem solving, increased rate of innovation. You're encouraging employees to be creative. You're encouraging the employees to ask questions. You're encouraging the employees to share ideas. Support employee growth and development. So as an organization, the growth of your employees, you're trying to provide them with the learning environment that you believe they need or they think they need to become a more integral part of your organization. So it goes back to that whole learning environment in terms of what type of learning do you get where you work. If you're interested, for example, wherever it is that you work, in being a manager of some type, does your employer, does your organization promote that and offer you some growth in that area in terms of education, online classes, or some other method of development? Sharing a specialistic expertise, in other words, the ability to transfer people within your organization who possess a specific type of skill that can improve the overall operation of another team or another group within the organization. Better communication. People are more aware of what's going on. And that shouldn't be as difficult today as it might have been, let's say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, because there's so much in terms of social media and other ways in which organizations can now communicate. Organizations, law enforcement, also, they have Twitter accounts. Police chiefs have Twitter accounts. Police departments have Twitter accounts. The President of the United States has a Twitter account. So communication in knowledge-based organizations will improve. And the more you have the free flow of information and ideas and sharing this within the organization, the more valued your employees are going to feel, and the more efficient and effective I think your organization is going to be. Improve business practices or processes, whatever those might be. So if you look at the law enforcement arena, you could say maybe our knowledge-based organizations allows us to do a better job in solving crime. Maybe it allows us to better respond to calls for service, whatever those might be. So these are the benefits to a knowledge-based organization or a learning organization. And so you can evaluate these based on our discussions already, but just think about the benefits to having an organization which its employees are learned in some respects, which, sharing of ideas is encouraged. You try to support your employee growth and their development through more training or different types of a learning environment that might take place. So now we get back to our last question, and that is it possible for law enforcement organizations become knowledge-based organizations? And I have this picture because I wanted to just to highlight the paramilitary hierarchical structure of a police organization. And so you can imagine a place like Los Angeles Police Department and whether or not it's easy for that organization to become knowledge-based because of its size, because of the tiers, the structure, or even a smaller organization, a police department, maybe a medium-sized organization with only 500 employees. But think about law enforcement and its organization. It is paramilitary. We tend to structure things a lot. We don't often encourage independent thinking because that's left for others to do. But think about, if you're in law enforcement, think about your organization and ask yourself whether or not your organization is knowledge-based and based on some of these benefits. Or here we go. There we go. The characteristics of a knowledge-based organization. And then just think about that, because if law enforcement does not possess the characteristics of a knowledge-based organization, then does that mean that it's going to stifle growth? That means we're going to become less effective in certain ways, or have we been able to adapt and sort of come halfway in between the two? In other words, we aren't truly a knowledge-based organization, but at the same point in time, we're getting closer to being a knowledge-based organization because what we allow our employees to do or not do. Okay, so just think about that, because I think it's important to understand that we're talking about knowledge-based systems, knowledge-based organizations. The availability of our employees become more knowledgeable in their field, whether it's with tacit knowledge or explicit knowledge, is a whole idea of whether or not law enforcement, because of the way we're structured and our focus and our primary mission, as to whether or not we can become a knowledge-based organization. Okay? I hope this helps. I really appreciate you guys tuning in this week. Sorry this week went a little bit longer, but I think it's important that we get a good understanding of this whole learning organization, the benefits to it, your ability to be a vital part of your organization and what steps your organization takes so that you can become, in fact, part of that learning environment, and that you become, in essence, an essential piece of your organization, and your ideas matter and you contribute to the general direction in which your organization is going. Okay? Thank you so much. Have a blessed week, and I will see you on Blackboard. Thanks, bye.